It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission Monday, August 18, 2014 to order. Let's have roll call. Commissioner Witcher.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Present.
Commissioner White. Here. Commissioner Hale. He's not present. Commissioner Schuline. Here. Commissioner Jenkins. Commissioner George. Not here. And Commissioner Yonkel.
Here.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion concerning approval of the minutes of the July 21st, 2014 meeting?
I move that they be approved as submitted.
We have a motion to approve the minutes from Commissioner Witcher.
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on the minutes from July 21st, 2014 meeting? Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes from Commissioner Witcher, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Now, the report on license and taxi will be presented in October. We move now to the consent docket, but before we talk about the consent docket, staff, do you have an input?
Item 4C, a request submitted by Debbie Holtzclaw. She's requested that this item be continued to the next hearing to give her an opportunity to visit with a representative from the Oklahoma City Museum of Art and with Downtown Oklahoma City, Inc.
Okay. Can I have a motion concerning the consent docket?
I'll move to approve the consent docket with the item being deferred.
Item 4C deferred.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Witcher. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have anybody here that needs to speak about a consent docket item? Okay, do we have anybody up here that needs to talk about a consent docket item? Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent docket minus item 4C from Commissioner Witcher, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay. Item is approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5, items for individual consideration. Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., Johnson & Associates, Inc., Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73104, to consider a request for the installation of a traffic signal at the intersection of East Britton Road and Tower Lakes Drive. Sir? If I have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon. Tim Johnson with Johnson & Associates. I'm at 1 East Sheridan, Suite 200, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73104. I'm here on behalf of the applicants. This has been an ongoing development of single-story offices to the west of the lake that's there near Kelly. The parcel east of the lake requires, the only access it has is onto Britton Road. And in our study of laying out three-story office buildings on that site, we recognize that we have a site distance issue and have worked across the site trying to figure out how to best serve this site from a safety standpoint, and determine that the best way to serve this would be to put the driveway where it best serves the site itself and apply for this signal to be installed along with protected left turn bays because of the speed and the site distance. We don't want anybody getting rear-ended there. So the developer anticipates paying 100% of the cost to make this improvement, and we would respectfully request your approval.
All right, thank you. Can we have staff input, please?
Okay, well, you've got our full comments before you. As Mr. Johnson indicated, the operational analysis that they submitted in conjunction with this, with their request, indicates that this intersection will meet the warrant 3, which is a peak hour traffic volume warrant, because there's three warrants in the MUTC, the Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices, that address traffic conditions, and this is, and typically for like industrial uses or big traffic generators, they have a tendency to meet, if they're going to meet any kind of a warrant, it'd be the peak hour warrant. So in recognition of this particular condition and the developer's commitment to fund the signal and the turn lane on Britton Road, we could recommend that you consider approval of this item.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5A?
I'll move to be approved.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
I ask for a clarification. Does the motion, or does what's being presented include the turning lane, or do we need to make that as part of the motion?
You can certainly include it. The applicant's representative has indicated that they're going to be including that as part of the project.
Okay, so just in making the motion or seconding the motion, that's already, the turning lane is part of the...
You can always restate it. That would be
Okay.
fine.
I would like
amend
to...
it.
Okay, well, let's go here to, okay, so let me say, do we have a motion for 5A to approve it with the modification of the turn lanes?
Yes, sir, that was my intent from the motion at the beginning, so I just
Okay,
clarified that.
that's from
Thank you.
Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Commissioner Witcher. Do we have any talk from up here on the... Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5A with the modification of the turn lanes from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Witcher. Can I have your votes, please? Okay. Item is approved. Thank you. Okay, we go on now to comments from citizens. We do have one person that wants to speak, at least put up something. Sir, did you want to come and talk? Okay, if I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Zachary Mikan, and I live at 1707 Northwest 22nd Street, 73106. I've been a student at Oklahoma City University here for 4 years, and I'm starting grad school this year. And the area between Penn and 23rd and Classen and 23rd, I feel, I don't know if it has already been evaluated, but I feel it needs to be evaluated for its speed limit. I feel it's low. Most people tend to go around 40 there, and it's marked 30. I think it probably should be marked 35 because of the average speed that most people go. So I don't know how to go about this, but...
Okay, then let's have the staff talk to you with some counsel.
Okay, I was about to say, anytime a request is, well, the Traffic and Transportation Commission has to hear requests for speed limit alterations. And the only way that they can take action on that is for someone to submit a request and then it be made part of their agenda. So
Okay.
My associate at the back of the room can give you some information to get you set up so that you can put in a request for that, to that
Okay.
effect.
Thank you.
And that would be it.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else for comments from citizens that maybe not have filled out a form? Okay, we go on over to item 7, reports and other items from traffic commissioners, et cetera. We do have a presentation before we come around the circle. We'll go ahead and take the presentation from the Public Works Department on a proposed 5-year capital improvement plan. And sir, if I could have your name, your address, and take as much time as you need to present the information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric Winger, I'm the Public Works Director for Oklahoma City, and pleased to address the Commission today. And what we have for you as part of our presentation is our 5-year CIP. We had intended to provide this last month, but we just didn't get the opportunity. So I've got several slides, and I'll show you kind of a history of some of the projects, some of the things that we're looking forward into the next 5 years, and of course provide some time to respond to any questions at the end. My appreciation to J.C. Reese and also our Assistant Public Works Director, Paul Bronson. They're really the ones that are responsible for a lot of the data and all of the slides that you'll find. So I've got J.C. with me today, and thank you. You're going to see, as we look at the next 5 years, this is a summary by year of that CIP plan, which you'll see totals about $365 million. You'll see that there's a variation in the amounts from year to year, and this really is contingent upon the bond sales. Most of the projects, as you're going to see, are bond funded, and so each year the sale amount changes just based on different financial criteria. This is the work by project type. You'll see our largest amount of work goes into our streets, which is about $237 million, but you'll see that we also do a series of other projects, including bridges, traffic, drainage, and facilities. This is the work by funding source, and as I previously mentioned, the largest portion of the funding for these CIP projects comes out of our 2007 bond issue. You'll see here it's about 74% of that comes from that bond issue, but you'll see there's a number of other funding sources as well. One of those that you'll see a little bit later in the slide presentation will be there is a significant portion of general funds, but you'll also see public property authority, special purpose, sports facility tax, and then there's the other bond program funds as well. So the types of projects that we look forward to in Public Works are, of course, street widening, resurfacing. We also have intersection traffic control, streetscapes, drainage, bridges, and also facilities. So these are, next series of slides, I'm kind of going to go through some of those project examples, and this is some of our street widening and resurfacing projects. This is a map of the entire city limits. These are our GEO bond project locations for those street widening projects. So you'll see everywhere there's a red line, you'll see that geographically those are spread around Oklahoma City, and that's intentional. Obviously, as we work, there is a lot of work in the downtown area, but this also shows that there's a lot of work in the outlying areas of Oklahoma City. Some of those projects are like this project on Eastern Avenue. This is a project that's it's actually completed. The final cost is $5.7 million. This is a 2- to 4-lane widening project that also had some federal fund participation. This next project is Portland Avenue at Southwest 74th to Southwest 104th. This is just near the Will Rogers World Airport. Obviously, that road has deteriorated, but this is a significant project that's underway, not yet completed. When we talk about resurfacing, also a significant component, the number one comment on Oklahoma City's citizen survey is the quality of city streets, and so we really put a lot of focus and priority on those. The widenings do help a lot, but obviously the resurfacing, bringing back streets that are in poor condition, this just shows you the complexity of that and how we planned those. You're going to see these in 3 different colors. The green is the projects that were in 2011, the blue is 2012, and the red is 2013. And here are some of those examples. This was some resurfacing that was done on Northwest 13th Street. But we also do a lot of neighborhood resurfacing projects as well. And this was one that was done on Northwest 16th. And this next one was done on Hudson. Intersection and traffic control is obviously a vital component, especially for a lot of the projects that you see here at the Traffic Commission. And these are those projects that were a part of the intelligent traffic system and our corridor projects. And so these are those 18 corridors that we have nearly implemented. We're in the final year of actually completing all the controller upgrades. Just kind of as a frame of reference, there were 750 intersections in Oklahoma City, all due for upgrades. And about 650 of those have now been upgraded, with the 100 final to be done by the first part of next year. The cabinets, as you see, like in this photo, are complete hardware upgrades. They're also wirelessly connected, so we now have communications throughout most of the intersections in Oklahoma City. One, it allows us to monitor status, but it also allows us to remotely reprogram or send new timing instructions to the cabinets as well. So that is something that our staff is being trained on continually as we bring more and more of these systems online. But it's already starting to show a difference because we can actually monitor remotely, which was not a capability we had before. This is a critical project that was completed last year at Northwest 164th and Penn. Obviously a project that was difficult because of the high traffic that's in the area, but it has since been completed and is actually functioning very well. As we move on to streetscape projects, probably those that are going to be the most familiar are the Project 180 enhancements that are here right in the downtown area. You've hopefully seen most of those. There's been some of those completed around the City Hall area. The map that you see on the right, everything that is in blue, to give you some bearing, the large green block at the bottom of the drawing is the Mary Botanical Gardens. If you look at the green blocks on the left, you'll see City Hall and the Bicentennial Park. So we're in City Hall now. Everything that's in blue has been completed. Everything that you see in the brown or the yellow is future construction, with the crosshatched yellow being under construction currently. So one of the big things that we've done with the Project 180 streetscapes is we are actually doing the construction 2 to 3 blocks at a time. It's a little different than how we were managing it earlier. There was a priority to get as much done as quickly as possible, but it's more controlled. There's obviously a lot of other projects in the downtown area now. There's a lot of private development, and so we're actually coordinating a lot of that work. The items that you see that are either in the brown, the yellow, or there's even a portion of Gaylord that's in red, those are expected to be completed here by the spring of 2016. So we're just about 18 to 20 months out from completing Project 180. This is some of the before and after pictures. Obviously, some of the things that can be expected are the continental crosswalks, the enhanced pedestrian safety, the new amenity zones, the new signals. Of course, all of those are ITS upgraded as well. The new stoplights, signal lights, and this is some of the construction that's ongoing. It's very difficult. There's a lot of utilities in downtown. It's not just a concrete street that's being placed. We're taking this opportunity to upgrade water and sewer. We're also having the private utilities that may be impacted upgrading their infrastructure as well. One of the last things we really want to do is to have to go back in here anytime soon and actually have to go back in and service some of those things when we're putting in so many new amenities. Moving on to drainage projects. There aren't as many as these to show, but they're obviously critical to our CIP. There's a lot of recent storms that have caused some downtown flooding, and there's a lot of work that's being done to mitigate that. We also have flooding in other areas. There are some projects that are included in the bond issue. Most of these are near the Penn Square Mall and a lot of that corridor that's there. This is at 51st and Hemingway, and there's some existing concrete channel. This is some liner that's already been replaced that you see on the right-hand side, but we're continually doing upgrades to the drainage system citywide. Moving on to bridge projects. This is the locations of the bridge projects that are also included in the bond issue, and you'll see that they're more spread out around Oklahoma City. Some of these include both vehicular, but also some pedestrian bridges as well. This first is Douglas Boulevard. This is at Southeast 149th and Douglas, and this was a bridge where the abutment, as you see on the left-hand side of the picture here, was actually eroding away and causing some concern. That abutment was completely replaced, and you can see that finished work on the right-hand side. This is a pedestrian bridge that's in the Quail Creek neighborhood area, and you'll see it too was eroding and the piers became exposed, and you'll see the completed work on the right where that riprap reinforced that channel that's there, and that work is also completed. As we move on to our building projects, there's a series of these that are completed each year by Public Works all over the city. You'll see that there's some different symbols here. There's some fire projects that you'll see kind of with a fire hydrant symbol. There's some police projects, library, and there's also some other city facilities. This is the new police headquarters that's actually under construction just to the west of City Hall. So if you did not get an opportunity to see that, you'll see a large new building going up next to the current police headquarters, and this is some of those construction photos that are there. It's well into construction. Total cost on this is about a $22 million new project. It's anticipated to be completed in the fall of 2015. This next is one of our more recent new fire stations, Fire Station number 26. This is at Southwest 119th and Rockwell. On the left, you'll see that artist rendering of what that fire station was expected to look like, and you'll see the completed facility on the right. It opened about a month and a half ago. This is some of the completed photos of that facility. It was a $2.5 million project. Another project that's under construction is the Lincoln Park Clubhouse, and so this is up at 4001 Northeast Grand Boulevard. Work was begun in 2013. It's actually nearing its completion. We expect it to actually finish up a little later this summer and be opened. One of the neat amenities that this will have is a public component of having more of a small ballroom that can be available for other events other than golf. So although it is a golf clubhouse and it's upgrading some older facilities, there's hoping to be a public component to this that can be encouraged, whether it might be for parties or other things. Moving on to the Cox Convention Center, and we look at some of our existing facilities and some of the things that we do to maintain those. This is a carpet replacement project that was recently completed for Cox. This is about $1 million project. And as you can see, as facilities age and as we have a number of events at a facility like the Convention Center, there's just continual maintenance and upkeep that are required, and Public Works is part of that project. So with that, that concludes the presentation. And again, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Yes.
Can you go back to the Lincoln Park and tell me why that falls under Public Works again?
So Public Works, although a parks project, I think that's a really good question. Public Works has staff that help facilitate at least the construction component of the project. So Parks was very involved, and so we work with park staff on the design, but when it comes down to the actual bidding, the construction, the inspections, Public Works is integrated at that point for the delivery of the project. But Parks will operate it when it's completed, just as they did before.
It's a private park.
It's a public facility.
Okay, all right.
Sorry. So all of the projects that you saw here are all public facilities.
All right, that was my confusion. Okay. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am?
Yeah. So the question is, the Belle Isle Bridge near Northwest Expressway has come under question, and there's some necessary repairs that are probably going to be taken here in the near future. I think I would use this example as many highway bridges. They're starting to see some maintenance items that are going to need to be repaired, and I believe that most of those probably can be done under traffic. Very rarely do we see where a bridge would have to be completely closed. A lot of the work can be done underneath. while traffic is on the surface. Now, granted, if they're doing any of the bridge deck, they may have to temporarily close some lanes. But at this time, I think it's a little early to forecast whether they're going to need a closure or not. But if we look at history, it would suggest that most of that could probably be done without impacting any traffic in the area.
Well, and I might just add one other thing to that. The state DOT is taking the lead on that particular project, and I know they've got coordination meetings set up with us here at the city yet to talk about how traffic's going to be handled during the project. Those meetings haven't been held yet.
Okay, Mr. Chair, do you have something?
Stormwater drainage. The map that you showed that had the instances of where you're considering doing this in what years, is it possible to get a copy of that?
For the storm, I think if we go back, you'll see that the storm projects are pretty limited right now. The ones are mostly focused right there in that Northwest Expressway area. But that doesn't mean that those are the only projects not contemplated for the city or public works. So these are the ones that are bond funded. There are other projects that we undertake. There were some downtown drainage improvements that we actually used other funds to complete, where we added inlets to streets, especially along Walker Avenue at 4th, at South, 25th. And we'll continue to do those projects, but you won't find those on a map like this. So we're not really mapping those. I would just tell you that we do those as active maintenance projects. And we do keep a list of unfunded projects that potentially would be added to the next bond issue. So these are the only ones that are in the 07. What I would tell you is the next bond issue is currently being contemplated for 2017, so we're just a few years out, so the planning has already started, and those list of unfunded projects will be prioritized and added to that next bond issue. So we'll be looking for citizen support as we go out for those, and we'll have a map that could reflect those then. Yeah.
You mentioned unfunded projects, and one of the things that we deal with often here is our request for signalized intersections, traffic signals, and we approve those if they seem warranted, with the understanding that they go onto a long list of unfunded projects. Is there, can you speak a little bit about how those specifically are prioritized and how likely they are to happen, and what kind of time frame, either
Absolutely.
in a maintenance or a new bond issue?
So what happens after the Traffic Commission approves maybe such a signal because it's warranted is it goes on to an unfunded traffic list, and that's managed by Mr. Chai and his office. And as we look at those two, sometimes funds come available before the next bond issue. They may come in the form of, say, developer proceeds, where a new development, we may be able to reach an agreement to have them make that installation. That happens sometimes. But more often than not, it's exactly the case where it's unfunded until that next bond issue. But that list will be used for the next bond issue to help in planning and acquiring the funds necessary to complete those projects. There's timing that's always involved. Obviously, the bond issues don't occur every year. Now, the sales might occur every year, but realizing that in 2007, any projects that may have been considered by the Commission after that time most likely weren't on the 07 bond issue. And so there probably are several on that list that are several years old, but I think the good news would be is as we plan for that next bond issue, our intent is to put them on that so that we can go ahead and get them constructed.
There was a slide early on, I think it was resurfacing, where it was showing a red and a green and a yellow, where it was 2011, 12, and 13 activity.
Right.
Do we know resurfacing activity for the 15 through 19 plan? And I am real curious to know, how are the roads selected? You know, being out real frequently in the rural areas, sometimes it feels like there's a lot of need on those roads, and I know you got to pick your battles and prioritize. How's that done? Because there are still some significantly needy roads.
Absolutely. So on an annual basis, we actually engage contract to survey the roads in Oklahoma City. And so we use a system called a PCI number, a Pavement Control Index number, and it's a scale of 0 to 100, 100 being new and 0 being that it's basically back to dirt. You know, it gives you that range. What I'd be happy to report to you today is that the Oklahoma City average PCI of a street is at a 63. But 3 years ago, it was a 60. So we're actually starting to see it climb as we complete more of our resurfacing and our widening projects. So the good news is the trend is going up. But we use that specifically, the PCI, we also use the traffic count data for those streets to determine which projects are the highest priority. We focus on the worst streets with the most traffic first. And so if you have a street that, say, has a PCI of 30 that's scheduled for replacement, or say you have 5 streets that are at a 30, we're looking at the most traveled first and then working our way down that list. So when it comes to the rural roads, although we may not have, and in some cases they're not always asphalt, we supplement that with our street crews. And so we actually actively do about 40 miles of rural resurfacing a year. So that activity is ongoing as we speak. It's a chip seal process that looks a lot like asphalt, but it's not asphalt specifically. We can use that on our lower traveled streets, but obviously the ones that are in need. We also have a micro-servicing program that targets to do about 80 miles a year of resurfacing that isn't on the drawing that I showed today. It's just part of a street maintenance program that we do. So with a combination of the bond issue and the combination of some of our other in-house work that we do our best to keep up. But I will say there's always a street that we'd like to get to before the end of the season, and it just sometimes isn't possible. But we prioritize them that way.
Got another one. Stormwater drainage. If there's a stormwater drainage issue, it's recognized pretty much only by a neighborhood. How does a neighborhood go about making Public Works aware that something like that needs to be looked at and possibly considered on the next bond?
We typically would receive contact from the homeowners association if one exists, or maybe from a representative from a neighborhood. And then we actually start a file for each one of those contacts made. We'll take photos, we'll visit with history, and we'll try to gain as much knowledge as possible about that particular system. Ultimately, though, it becomes down to a decision if it's in the public right-of-way or if it's all privately owned. And what I'll share is that sometimes after we do our full research, we find out that the drainage complaint is all on private property, and there's very little the city is going to be able to do in that case. But there are other cases where it is a channel that's a easement. It was dedicated when the neighborhood went in, and it may be suffering from a replacement or from advanced maintenance that we can assist on. And in those cases, we do add those to the unfunded drainage list, and those are considered for a future bond issue. But I think that initial phone call from either a representative or the president or an officer of the homeowners association is our first step.
If that drainage issue impacts both, does the city only get involved on the portion where it impacts the city property? Where if the stormwater is coming through a neighborhood and then impacts Air Depot, for example, out in the Oakdale area?
So generally, yes. And the reason I say generally is we have cases every once in a while where a private property owner will be working in a floodplain area and actively fill a floodplain, which is not allowable. We'll have to get engaged in a private property matter to exercise that authority so that they don't cause flooding to a downstream property owner. But very rarely do we get involved in that way. But yes, mostly the city can only work on public property. Yeah. We respond to all complaints, though. And sometimes, I mean, we're unfortunately the bearer of the bad news that it's a private matter. Probably our number one complaint is erosion. The channel banks start to become more vertical, trees start to cave into a creek. And simply the resources may not be available to the property owner to clean those trees, and they're looking towards the city to assist. We are able to sometimes steer resources in that direction, even if it's just contact information, but we'll do what we can.
Okay, anything else from over this side? More here? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, now from the traffic commissioners, Commissioner Witcher,
I have nothing to report, sir.
Commissioner Littlefield.
The subcommittee's meeting this afternoon. After this meeting, we think we've got some results in from driver feedback devices. So we'll let you know next month what we discover.
This is a subcommittee on traffic calming.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Commissioner White.
Nothing to report, sir.
Commissioner Schuline. Commissioner Jenkins. Commissioner Yonkel. Sir, from law enforcement, counsel. Mr. Chai.
Just our standard report at the end of your agenda regarding the yield signs that were installed and any parking controls that were installed that we can handle administratively, but other than that, nothing to report.
Okay. Any other business? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Wisher, second. Second from Commissioner Jenkins. Can I have your votes? And we're out of here.